Tuesday, and welcome to the MSL Lead Chronicles. It's a podcast on a mission in medical affairs leadership. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy, Chad Fellers, we're going to have casual talk about important topics and challenges in leadership, and we are so glad you're here. Stay tuned. The views and opinions expressed by our guest, Chi Momah, are solely his own and do not reflect the opinions of his employer. His employer is not responsible for any content or statements made herein, and the information provided should not be construed as their official policy or an endorsement of any kind.
Hello, and welcome back to MSL Lead Chronicles. I am your host, Chad Fellers. My co-host and counterpart, Mary, is away today. So when she's away, I get to play and have some fun. We're going to have fun today. I cannot wait to have this conversation with one of my favorite people within industry, just a person altogether, Chi Momah. Chi Momah is the Vice President of Sales at Bluebird. That's not how I know him from a role position, but it's going to lead to a great conversation today. I cannot wait to get started about that. Hope everybody's had a good week since we last connected. I know you're going to really learn a lot from our topic today, which is cross-functional collaboration. And I don't want to mess things up, Chi. So I'd love for you just to orient our listeners to just who you are and just a little bit about your journey. So why don't we get things kicked off?
That's well, thanks for having me, Chad, and looking forward to our conversation here. So again, name is Chi Momah, PharmD by background, and spent the last 17, 18 years in the industry. And I've been fortunate and blessed to spend time across multiple different functions, from field medical to headquarters medical to headquarters commercial and marketing roles, and also field commercial roles, and had a chance to grow in all my positions and now lead our accounts and sales team here at Bluebird Bio, which is focused in gene therapy.
Love it. I love it. And I want to hear more about your story and share with the listeners, but the listeners are also acquainted with how we do things here from a roadmap. So would love to first, if we could, summarize what you want the listeners to have from a key takeaway standpoint. Would you mind sharing those?
Yeah. So when it comes to cross-functional collaboration, I view that as the secret sauce that makes organizations have success. And when it comes between medical and commercial, the first and foremost is to ensure that they are defined and aligned goals and objectives between both teams. You don't want one group focusing on a totally different objective and medical going in the opposite direction. That can't happen. It seems easy and simple, but let me tell you, it takes work. Number two, I think, and I'm going to put this more on the medical side. I think as medical folks, we need to really seek to understand, right? There's why commercial is heading a certain direction. There's a reason why they are making a certain decision, and it's not for a different group to go against it. We should try to understand the reasons why, because those nuggets, those insights can help guide, again, those strategies, those plans to overarching to hit our goals and objectives. And I think thirdly, every group that's involved in collaboration, they all need to understand their position. I'm a big sports guy, big football guy, played linebacker in college. And I understand the linebacker role in order to work well with my entire team. I couldn't go and start and try and play safety or quarterback or receiver and tell them what to do. I needed to understand my position and play my position and do it well. So I think those are kind of three things that come to mind about cross-functional collaboration, right? Is to have defined goals, seek to understand the why behind those goals, and play your position.
Ooh, I think we can just end things now. Chi, that's good. I love it. I cannot wait to unpack that a little bit more. So let's kind of let's orient the listeners more than just like your overview of your history. Tell us a little bit about your career journey.
Yeah, so I began my career straight out of pharmacy school, right into a postdoctoral PharmD fellowship. From there, I worked at BMS in a headquarters medical affairs role. After that time as a fellow, I had the opportunity to go into a commercial role. I've always had an interest in commercial, going back to my fellowship years. But I decided to go down the route of an MSL role versus going into a pure commercial role at that time. Became an MSL at a small company called Cephalon. Was there for some time and again really grew and learned a lot at my time as an MSL at Cephalon. There's a time where Cephalon was being acquired by Teva Pharmaceuticals, and throughout, I always say when there's change and where there's difficulty brings opportunities. During that change, I had a chance to become an interim, AD with the MSL team, and got a chance to spend a lot of time in headquarters, a ton. And during that time is when I got even more exposure to the commercial side and really built my network within the organization. And that's what led to me actually being getting the chance to jump from an MSL role into a marketing role. And let me tell you, Chad, I was a fish out of water. I went from talking about neurotransmitters and, disease states to learn about profit and loss statements, messages, market research, things that were a different language. But I loved it. I loved the challenge and dove in head first. And over time became a brand lead for one of our palliative care oncology brands at Teva. And again, so much growth came from that opportunity. That experience then brought me over to Merck Oncology. And I'll tell you, the link there was a mentor of mine from BMS moved over to Merck, and she was the one that actually brought me in. So I joined the oncology marketing team, again, contributing at a higher level at Merck. And then some time passed, and told myself I would never go back to medical. No, no offense, but I just enjoy commercials so much. But I said I would only go back if someone asked me to. And lo and behold, I got a request to, hey, we were looking for new leaders on the field medical side, and I think you'd be a great fit given your background. So I took the leap and officially became a full-time leader of one of the field teams at Merck. And then as time went on, I got another phone call from a colleague, a mentor of mine, who actually was the one to mentor me in marketing over at Harmony Biosciences, a small company just getting started, and took the leap there as well, and went over to Harmony as employee number 20 or so, and took a role there to help build out their MSL team, and that's where I met Chad. And Since Harmony, I've left to join Bluebird and now grew. I joined Bluebird originally to lead their field medical team and was eager to get back into commercial. So eager. And an opportunity came up, and I joined our commercial field team in a lateral position and then grew into the role I'm into today as the lead and head of our field commercial team.
What else do you have planned? That is a lot. I heard a few different things in there. I think that are key. Number one is the importance of networking and never underestimating who you might run into a year down the road, 5 years down the road, and every interaction we should view as a KOL interaction, right? I think we think of external in ways, but the way that we engage others internally, not only does it help the function of the overall organization, but it also sets you up potentially for success down the road as well too. You never know when those opportunities are going to come, and how you approach even the small things matter. So I heard that would be one. I am curious though, what made you go, you said that you wanted to be commercial in the very beginning, but so why did you take the MSL role, and then how did that help position you in ways and uniquely within commercial?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, one, there was a personal reason. I met my girlfriend, now wife, and wanted to stay local versus going out of state. So that was one driver. But number two, I think one of the skill sets of good MSLs is strong communication skills. And I think that's a skill set that can bring people, in various different roles and in different places. And I wanted to master that skill as well in the MSL role. So, I think one, it was personal, but two, I wanted to grow in other skill sets as well.
Fair enough. I love it. I love the journey that you've been on thinking about this. You also said something about the importance, some of the key takeaways about knowing roles, but then also seeking to understand. And
Hmm.
so I think we would be fools to not admit that as a rule across industry, there's a disconnect really between medical and the rest of the organization at times, specifically around the impact and value of medical. I mean, oftentimes I hear people relay medical as it's a clear understanding pre-launch, a clear understanding launch, and then it's okay, what else do they do, what's their need, what's the justification to continue, etc. What's the impact and value of medical? And so there are barriers. Can you talk a little bit about what you see as the barriers that may cause this lack of understanding?
Well, I'll share, and I think this goes back to the communication skills because it's not just how and what you say; it's also the listening part, right? And I think that active listening skill set is critical to understand, right? So when you think about the two different groups, they're talking in two different languages, right? Medical is talking medical speak, and commercial is talking commercial speak. And sometimes, and most times, those two languages sometimes don't mix too well. So having a chance to seek to understand so you can translate, right, the goals or the performance or the KPIs of medical, right, to help support the business, I think goes a long way. And I think when it comes to seeking to understand, again, you first have to understand your position. And I'm a big believer that medical, right, is a strategic partner, right, in our industry. But when you look at what keeps the lights on for any company is revenue. And revenue is owned by the commercial team. So I think knowing your position in that, while medical can't drive sales, medical can't drive that. But how do we translate our KPIs, our goals, our objectives to a way that will be understood by our commercial colleagues?
Part of that component is from a quantitative perspective, right?
Mhm.
So I think you and I have had these conversations several times over the years, just and certainly showing value. There's a component, and there's a call to action. But what are other ways to elevate impact? What are some things from the sales perspective that would be wow moments? I think that would be a great thing for the listeners to consider.
Well, let me first address the metrics piece because that's everyone's favorite topic, right?
The
Metrics,
M word, the
the
M
M
word.
word. And I'll tell you what, when I sat in the leadership role over field medical teams, I'm not a firm believer that metrics equals value, right? It's just one component of a value story. But as the leader, whoever sits in that chair to lead that field team needs to have a very strong collaborative partnership with the commercial team. And we need to listen. What's the overall strategy? What's the business goals? How can the field team kind of be one piece of the puzzle in a compliant way to bring value? So I'm a big believer of initiatives. So if there's a business need or a gap, right, and it often takes a medical person to see that gap, commercial may not see it. So in those conversations, those strategy conversations, asking those questions, seeking to understand, a light bulb should go off at some point of, hey, the field medical team can fill that gap. Let me pull together a recommendation, right? Or hey, you know, um, the field team can maybe support this efforts, right? And that's the way we bring the medical team brings value, right? And then it's up to that leader to not only execute against that initiative well, but bring back the impact. How do you dissect the results of the field medicals team's efforts in a way for a commercial, or even if you're a small company, the C suite to understand, to really showcase the efforts and the impact that field team is bringing to the company?
We did several initiatives, didn't we?
Oh, yes, we did.
I think we did, and they did
We
make
did.
they did make quite a bit of impact. That's right. It's part of it is storytelling, I think,
Hmm.
and how do we tell a good story? I think that's one of the things I learned from you in many ways, and you probably picked up a lot of that from your marketing experience, et cetera, from the exposure. Um, let's go back. So you know me, I go where the conversation takes us oftentimes, and not just from a script per se. I want to go back to the idea of you made the transition from an MSL into stepping into more of the marketing type of
Yeah.
role. So when you made that transition to marketing, what were the aha moments that you were able to incorporate when you came back to the medical side?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so many. Again, it came down to the difference in language, right? Difference in how commercial is thinking and how medical is thinking. And when I stepped back into a role to lead a medical team, a field medical team, one, I did that in the same company, so I had all the connections with the commercial team. They knew who I was, I knew who they were, and I was able to establish that immediate trust of, hey, like, okay, Chi is now leading that team. Number two is, again, I knew what questions to now ask, right? I knew how to understand where the gaps were from a business standpoint and what that means from a medical standpoint. Um, I then knew exactly how to even help educate the MSL team on why what they're doing matters. It matters for the company, it matters for patients, and let me help you connect the dots, right? And I think when you have a team that's operating to a different level of awareness or enlightenment, it does tend to yield a different level of results. So I think those pieces were the aha moments where I was able to bring some of that experience from commercial and leverage it the right way to drive results and leading the team.
It's so important for leadership to be able to offer that clear communication of the why. I think
Mhm.
that's it increases buy-in, increases ownership. I mean, a common thing about that is around insights, right? I think that's always
Mhm.
been a thing. Like you send in insights, where do they go? They go into a black hole. I don't hear the impact that comes from this. So why are we continuing to do this? If you don't share that story and able to communicate it both directions, you're missing something, and it's a hole that needs to be filled to really have that impact. And what you just shared there, you're being able to provide context to the medical affairs team. You basically showed this is the importance of seeking to understand in ways, right? When we just talked about earlier. So I love that.
Point on, and it's funny. I didn't even touch upon insights, right? Which is again a key value of medical. The one thing about insights is one is the field medical team asking the right questions,
That's
right,
right.
to the customers. You could be out there asking questions that the medical team believes are the right ones. Do all that work, compile the analysis, bring it back to headquarters, and the impact falls flat, right?
Yep.
But if you know exactly what gaps we need to close or where we need to learn and further understand with the HCPs, with the medical field that the team is in, again the impact is just higher, and the value is there. So really alignment with your cross-functional colleagues is critical.
That is one area that I want to be able to quantify qualitative information, right? Or impact, right? That's, I try to say it's similar to like a clinical trial design. I mean, what is more impactful, a study that looks at 30 patients or a study that looks at 3,000, right? So I would say when I'm thinking about metrics, and one of the things we did with one of our teams is we said, okay, for every scientific interaction, for 70% of those, the expectation is to ask a key insight question that aligns to medical strategy. I mean, the ultimate goal, I think, the gold or the currency rather of medical affairs specifically within field medical is to confirm or align medical strategy based off of the things that you learn, right? So just having one insight that comes back and says, oh, we should do this. If I'm a medical director, that's a nice thing to know and maybe a curiosity thing. But if I know, or the business, if I see but if I get this response back, like, okay, we asked 100 providers about placement in therapy with a new product, and this is the differentiator with medical affairs. And I think that we have to do better on this is we can understand the thought process as a trusted scientific advisor to those we're engaging. A market survey cannot do that, right? A market survey tells you the answer, but it doesn't tell you what's driving the behavior. And that's the gold, I think, of medical affairs, is being able to communicate that to our cross-functional partners to ensure confidence. It could be leading indicators. It could be lagging indicators. You could do it both ways, right? But that's the true value of that. If you can truly communicate that, here is why it's first line or second line. It's because 60% say it's adverse event profile or dose administration, et cetera. It identifies areas to really either leverage or things that need to be addressed as well too. So
that's a great point. So like if you think about on the marketing side, right, the way marketing builds their plans and strategies off of market research, right? And there's two types. You have the quantitative type and the qualitative type. Qualitative is more of an interview. You're probably doing a dozen, 24, maybe more, depending on the company and the budgets. And those are really valuable to help build out the brand strategy. You now take that to an MSL team that's having a peer-to-peer conversation for an hour or more.
yeah.
And you're digging deep to really understand the why behind the why behind the why. The impact that brings is I think groundbreaking, right? So especially in a pre-launch environment, or if the team is again looking ahead environment. So it's important again for that collaboration, whether it's from the field head to commercial or with the med director. It needs to be a strong partnership to ensure alignment and execution.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this now. I love these ideas that pop into our head here. So just to relate this to the majority of our listeners, which are in medical affairs, it's easy to understand the approach of being proactive versus reactive on certain topics, whether it's with the providers or not. It's what am I taking initiative to proactively talk about, or what am I waiting until something is asked of me? So when we think about reporting of the work our team is doing, the findings that we have, and how we want to share that information across functions. Can you talk a little bit about your experience of your approach when you were leading in medical affairs?
Okay. So being proactive or reactive in sharing updates to headquarters. It needs to be proactive. I think if a leader, any leader, is in a position where someone has to ask them what your team is doing, it's a problem. As leaders, it's our job to proactively promote and showcase your team. So when I led field medical, even in my role right now, there's a routine cadence where I am showcasing the team's efforts and impact. When leading field medical, I'm showcasing the team's impacts, sharing reports, getting feedback. Does this meet your expectation, cross-functional partner? If it doesn't, help me understand why not. So I can go back and think through ways to raise the bar, right? So I do think if if a team leader is reactive in their approach to showcase their team's efforts, it's it's doing that team a disservice.
Mm.
Sorry for being so blunt, but it
No, I
is.
think that I think we need to hear that. I think we do. But I love the extra step you just took with this too. Not only did you share the information, but you tried to understand if it even resonates, right? I mean, we think about sometimes these initiatives that we may do or decks that we build or the direction we want to go, and we don't even consider or understand how this is resonating with our the end user. I think that you asking that question, not necessarily asking them to tell you what to do,
Mm-mm.
but to give you feedback, and be transparent rather, because of the trust that you've built. I think it builds it with them. It's a whole other topic we don't have time to get into, but it's really around um, uh, trying to, how do we gain the trust? How do we understand as we get into these leadership roles? It's clearly laid out when you come into an MSL role, maybe even a medical director role type of thing, as far as this individual contributor. But how do you learn how to lead? How do you learn what is needed? And part of that is having the humility to be able to ask questions and not take offense to the feedback that you get, because we don't get anywhere if we assume that we know it all, then we limit ourselves. And so I love the idea that you're asking that, and it's not a personal thing, because you truly are wanting to be able to demonstrate the value for your team and make an impact on the overarching business. So I love that you chose to do that, and you choose to do that as well too. I think that's a great action point.
Yeah, I think the way I approach leadership, right? Is no, I'm serving my team, right? And that's my job is to serve, and one of those ways is to ensure that um, what the hard work they're doing is being showcased to the right people within the organization, and to ensure that the work they're doing is bringing the biggest impact possible. I'm not sure about you, Chad, but well, I do know about you, but for me, I don't want to be doing hard work that's not meaningful. That's not making a difference for patients. That's why we're in this business, is to make a difference for patients. So if my leader isn't helping me deliver work that will make an impact on a patient's life, that's a disservice. So that's the way I take my roles as leading teams. Is I have an obligation to make sure that the team is bringing the most value possible to impact patient lives. So I have to be humble and ask what's missing. What can we do better? Does this meet expectations? So that way I can take that back and figure out how to adjust again to raise the bar.
So when you talk about meeting expectations, that is not the Chi Momah that I know. It is the exceed, or if there is a ranking up to five, you want to get to the five. It doesn't matter if if it's not given out to any employee or whatever. So I know that your bar is always calling people up. So let me expand. Can you want to really go back to the idea of medical affairs no longer just being a supplement or an additional component, but a core pillar within the company? And so to get there, what are the things that we need to do and what aspects? So I'm just curious, do you remember, is there any time that stood out where it was something that it was like an icing on the cake of some type of report that was beyond just the numbers of interactions and those types of things?
Yeah, yeah. So let me give a caveat with this, right? Is um, operating in a big company and versus a smaller company is different, and the opportunity to really make an impact in a smaller company, is ripe, is there for the taking. And the bigger company is multiple layers you have to work through, and you might not see it go all the way. But I can share, actually, in a number of cases where um, we were able to define a specific, tangible initiative or a tactic that um, I got alignment on that will make a huge impact on the company's goals. I think once you get alignment from, the head of commercial or the chief commercial officer, hey, that idea is great. If you can do that, that will be phenomenal. And it was both were insights driven, by the way. And and we were able to execute against this and gather key insights that helped shape the commercial plans for launch to a point where the report went to the C suite, and I had a chance with my MSL to present the findings to the CEO, CMO, CCO, the full C suite. And then the CMO took that report and went to the board with it. So to think about an MSL is asking insights to a provider that was brought into a larger bucket of the whole team's insights and went all the way to the board of this company. So I think that all began by seeking to understand, hey, where are the gaps? Okay, thank you for sharing that with me. I have an idea. Let me go and package it first and come back to you and then bring it back to show that, wow, that idea will be great. Let's do it. And I think again, it comes down to listening to your partners. I will also share one more thing is this. As leaders, we can assume we know what's best for the team. So even when I have an idea, I always gut check with another leader on my team or another MSL on the team. Always, because that gut check always yields a stronger idea. Always. So I think that as leaders, we have to also recognize we have really powerful assets on the MSL team. Probably, actually, it is our number one resource is the people.
Yeah.
So leveraging the team also will yield stronger ideas and stronger outputs as well.
I mean, it's so true, and even when you do that, and you set the tone for this for me too. The more you invite others in, the more the buy-in happens as well too, because you create. It goes back to the whole tenets we talk about in the servant leadership model about you're creating a sense of ownership, and it becomes more than just a project. It becomes a passion as well
Mm-hmm.
too, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody is bought in. I think one of the things that you said that I want to make sure those that are aspiring for leadership here, when we get into leadership roles, it's our job to hear and then bring forward ideas like, what are your thoughts on this? Not what do you want me to do? I think that that's we're so used to being told what to do, and we serve as individuals that drive tactics, or I will do these things, and there's certainly components of that in leadership we always have to do. But I think at the same time, it's our job to start casting that vision, thinking strategically as well too. Obviously the sounding boards internally, but even back to our partners. Hey, this is what I heard in our last conversation. Here's my idea. I would love to get your thoughts on this. I think as a result of this happening, we can find this out that will provide X, right? I think that bringing solutions to a posed problem, I think separates really the great leaders from those that are just in a leadership position.
I'll share this. As we're talking, this came to mind. I get asked all the time, gee, how'd you jump from field medical to field commercial? Like how? And I could go into a long explanation and give you all my background, but there's really one ingredient: leadership. There's, I believe, really strong leaders. There's not a lot of them out there. And this is not to tote my own horn at all. I am still growing as a leader, even today. But if in any role that we're in, leading people, leading teams, even if you're leading cross-functional teams, the very first challenging leadership opportunities I had was in marketing, leading 5 to 6 other cross-functional headquarters teams. I wasn't their boss. We were peers, but leading them was not easy. And that's a skill that we have to always hone on to, grow and nourish, because that will bring us to different places. So I think at the end of the day, that leadership skill is, I believe, one of the most important skills anyone could have in any function, in any role, in any company.
Learning to lead without a title, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that that's so key, especially when you're having to navigate nuances of regional versus global, or whatever that looks like. Oftentimes, many companies have this siloed approach and want to, own. It's about project management instead of the end game, about who we're trying to serve and benefit, right? And so I think it's always important. True leaders, can help others take a step back and remind them of the why we're here and what we're doing as well too. And if you set that down, if you set that expectation, then I think it removes defensiveness and this whole thing of, no, you don't get to tell me what to do, or this is my idea and this is my remit and you can deal with it later, right? So I think learning how to lead without a title, whether you're in a leadership role, whether you're in an individual contributor, whether you're doing that serving in a cross-functional matrix, it's all essential. And really, that's the shift in medical affairs has to take when we think about the future, right? EQ has to be as high as the IQ, if not more. You can teach things, and now with AI or any of this, I mean, you can Google information from a scientific standpoint. If you don't know how to negotiate, to navigate conversations, etc., then it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter. And I know you know this, right? So, all right. So this is kind of a aside as we get close to wrapping up our conversation with this. You talk about all the different functions that you that have helped shape your career in ways, shaped others as well too. It got me thinking about this from a professional development, from an individual. So let's think outside the box for a second. So talk about how, or what are your thoughts on, as part of professional development, say for an MSL, say for a medical director, whoever that might be, to focus on an area of development like marketing or business development?
Our industry contains so many different pillars, so many roles. There's so many pieces to the puzzle, and medical is just one component. Even within medical, there's multiple layers, right? So I think the more someone is exposed to roles across different functions, right? Even if they go back to that MSL role after all that time, they will know more. They will see the things differently. They can understand how medical is one piece to this larger puzzle, and it may shape the way they view things or shape the way they ask questions. So I'm a firm believer, huge believer in gaining cross-functional experience because it will make that person stronger in the long run, hands down. Rotation, shadowing someone, um, those things all add up and can make a difference long term.
We need to embrace those types of things. I think that's a mindset shift. I know that happened to me in a course called contextual leadership, right? I mean, I think many people know my journey when starting out as a retail pharmacist. I know everybody knows Little Rock, Arkansas is the secondary metropolis of pharmaceutical industry. And so that's a joke for most people. I promise. But there was this mindset for me that retail pharmacists had nothing to or very little to offer pharmaceutical, big pharma and pharmaceutical industry, and just shaping the mindset of the different experiences. You know, I had retail, I had corporate management, within Walgreens, I had PBM experience as well too. So instead of thinking of myself of little, you think about those experiences and how well they've shaped me to be able to think about things differently, to provide different perspectives and values, and to be more of a holistic view. So to your point, I think that there's so much value to gain those things that help shape to give you more of a 360 view on what you're trying to do. So I love it. Okay, I got one more question for you. And you're a big thinker, you're a dreamer. Let's go ahead and throw any kind of legal or compliance types of things out the window right now. Let's think about 5 or 6 years on the road. Let's say 2030. What ways of working would you like to see medical affairs embrace across industry in 2030? Is there any type of thing that you would love to see that's different than what's going on right now?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that I think is very clear the complexity and the science behind the therapies that are coming out today are just growing. It's more complicated. There's more complexity. The science is more. We're the days of a simple molecule being launched are gone. I mean, we're in gene therapy. We're in vaccines. We're in complex science. So to me, that underscores the value that medical should and could bring as again science advances. And I think, to your point, big thinking, you know, and this might, ruffle some feathers
Oh, just
the
say it.
wrong
That's
way.
okay. That's what we do here. We like to ruffle
Um,
feathers.
I do think medical should really embrace the commercialization mindset. I'm not saying medical is commercial, but there's a commercialization piece to this. And the role they're going to play to support the business, to help be that core pillar for commercialization is going to be paramount. So whether it's a new form of field commercial people that are more like MSL like, and they're not truly selling, they're more scientific consultants. I think that's coming. I think the role of post hoc analyses and data generation there will be more of a collaborative insight gathering process to ensure that we're really getting the insights from the right people, because there's KOLs, then there's the everyday practitioner. Those people are the ones that need the most help. So how do we create the right data to help them understand the science, right? So I think that's where we're going. I think is the science is more complex, is more complicated, and I view in the future some type of stronger merger collaboration between like a medical based type of commercial team.
You've told me this before, and I think I had a visceral reaction the first time I heard it. But now I'm starting to think through this a little bit more and think about even what the FDA is doing now around orphan and rare disease. When you think about what Operation Warp Speed, the regulations are changing. And why is it? It's for patient outcomes, right? And so I think if we keep that mindset in that, but this really is helping close that gap in ways, we should be open to thinking about things differently like that. So we're probably not too far off from what you were thinking about right now, Chi.
At the end of the day, biotech pharma companies exist to help patients at the end of the day. So in whatever capacity we can do it and do it efficiently, it needs to come forth. I think about like ultra rare diseases. We got teams out there right now, and all they do is help doctors diagnose. That's a medical function, right? To help doctors diagnose this one in hundredth, 1 in 100,000 type of patient diagnosis. So, we have personalized medicine with gene therapy. It's a complex process, complex science, a lot of science behind it, right? So I think that's where we're going. How it looks and how it shapes, I don't know, but I think there's a need for it, given how complex the medicine is becoming.
Lots of great stuff discussed today, Chi. Man, just from a personal standpoint, I want to make sure we connect more often because good night. It's so good. I love hearing your ideas and thoughts. You inspire me, believe it or not. So still, and that's enough. That's enough. I don't have to kiss up to you anymore. So I guess that's enough flattery for the day. But anyway, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this. I know that there's some great takeaways that Chi's offered, a lot of things to think about how we do things. And the challenge would be, what's one way you could take a step forward, and whether it's with cross-functional in reporting, whether it's just seeking to understand, maybe that's the first application, is to really ask questions. And even share your purpose, right? The purpose is really to elevate medical affairs, to support the business, and to be a strategic partner. Asking questions of what the gaps are and needs, I think is a great application for that. So, Chi, it was an encouragement to us. Thank you so much for hopping on. One of the sayings that we say here at MSL Lead Chronicles is leaders don't develop in isolation. I mean, we can learn the hard way at times in isolation, but leaders learn from other leaders, and you're definitely one of those. And we appreciate you spending some of your time today to connect with us. So thanks so much.
Thank you.